Welcome, everyone. I think we'll get started now. I know people are still signing in, but I'd like to get started so we can hear our lecture for tonight. Hi, I am Cathy Blake, Director of Campus Planning and Design and the University Landscape Architect here at Stanford. Welcome to the third lecture of our 2021 Architecture, Landscape, Urban Design Spring Lecture Series. The theme of this year's lecture is the public realm. As of 2019, approximately 84% of the United States population lives in urban areas, up 20% from 1950. This increasing density has dramatic positive and negative impacts. The Bay Area is one of many urban regions struggling with transportation, housing, and equity crises, resulting in glaring socioeconomic divide and physical segregation. Yet research shows that the more we engage with people who are different from us, the more creative we become together. A diverse community is better equipped to develop successful solutions to complex problems that fuel evolution. Cities are the incubators of innovation, and the public realm can be the great mixing chamber where new ideas are conceived. We are honored to have such outstanding professionals join us this spring to reflect on the significance of the public realm in their design approach and across their body of work. Before we begin, I want to thank Zach Posner, Director of Architecture, John Barton, the Director of the Stanford Architectural Design Program, Padma Kadidapudi, and Diana Lin for organizing the series. I'd also like to thank the American Institute of Architects, Silicon Valley, for advertising the series and registering our program for continuing professional education. At the end of the lecture, your attendance will automatically be noted and submitted to AIA. Thank you too to the Northern California chapter of the American Society of Landscape Architects for their support of this program. Our next lecture is in 2 weeks, and we are pleased to have Julie Eisenberg from Kona Eisenberg. It will also be held virtually via Zoom webinar, just like today. So now here are the protocols for today's webinar. Please use the question and answer section to post any questions you may have, and I'd like to encourage questions. About 10 to 15 minutes will be allocated at the end of the lecture for these Q&As. And the moderator, Krista Van Hove, a Stanford planner and president of Northern California ASLA, will group similar questions and present them to the speaker as time permits. Thank you, and now it is my pleasure to introduce Kona Gray, principal of the firm EDSA. Strong leadership and integrity are part of Kona's DNA. With experience in 30+ countries, he integrates creativity and regional resources into functional environments that invigorate the imagination. Kona is a firm leader that creates welcoming places that promote community and vitality in diverse neighborhoods. Blending sensitivity with innovative design solutions, he unites a client's vision with his own vanguard designs to produce environments with purpose and presence. At EDSA, Kona's award-winning projects are inspired by a passion for creative design solutions that solve meaningful global issues. His portfolio ranges from large-scale planning to detailed site design with emphasis on communities, parks, hospitality, public realm, mixed use, healthcare, and campuses. Dedicated to quality, Kona considers important factors like community, heritage, environment, and the constant pursuit of improving humanity through landscape. Kona is a fellow of the American Society of Landscape Architects and is currently on the Landscape Architecture Accreditation Board. He is past president of the Landscape Architecture Foundation and an active member in the Urban Land Institute. Kona earned a Bachelor of Landscape Architecture degree from the University of Georgia. And now please give a warm welcome to Kona Gray.
Cathy, thank you so much for the introduction. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Thumbs up?
You're good, yeah.
Great. I'm so delighted to be here with you all this evening. It's just fantastic to have these opportunities to share our world together, talk about things of concern, and also think about the future. I definitely feel very honored to be a part of this series in regards to the public realm. And I'd like to thank Stanford and the Northern California chapter of ASLA, as well as the local AIA for their sponsorship of this opportunity. So I'm going to run through this presentation, and as we get near the end, we'll have some opportunities to go through some questions and discuss sort of next steps. I've titled this presentation, this lecture, Democratic Ground. It's been something we've all been thinking about quite a bit, how we use our public spaces, what they mean to us, and what people actually are able to enjoy those spaces. This image from Millennium Park really brings a lot of joy to my mind when I think about all the different people that are here enjoying this opportunity to be in the public realm. So what is the public realm? It is democratic ground, in my opinion. We do believe that there is this opportunity to reinvent the practice of design of these public spaces, specifically to help reconnect people of color to the environment. We have seen a dramatic and ongoing systematic use of the land that's really not allowed everyone to participate. So we want to figure out how design will mitigate the effects of climate change and racism and everything to species extinction and inequality. The big question we're going to ask ourselves is how will design of the public realm support equal ground for everyone? We do believe it's important to develop a greater insight into our interconnectedness. We are all alike. We all need each other. We see this as a call to action. You know, I've always wondered, are designers prepared? Are we really prepared for these challenges that are continuing to come upon us? Climate change and social inequities have been around for quite some time, and now it's really starting to have some major effects on the public. And so all that looks towards creating the public realm and actually shaping the environment in order to benefit everyone. Key takeaways this evening will be looking and understanding the reality of design of the public realm, challenging the world to reconcile these places so we can bring people together, understanding the possibilities of reconnecting humanity to the environment, and finally celebrating our common future. It's unbelievable because in many ways, you know, there are opportunities for expand our awareness and understanding of a different perspective because we are different, but we have a lot to bring to the table. The agenda this evening is really straightforward. We're going to go through the reality of our situation, the opportunity for reconciliation. We're going to talk about reconnecting people to the environment, and then we'll close. Most importantly, we want to enhance our self-awareness of each other and finding ways for us to all be together in this magnificent planet that we share. So, democratic ground, wanted to go through this sort of definition of what it is. Obviously, many of us are familiar with these terms, these words, the democratic word, really favoring democracy and taking care of people, being able to relate to the idea that all people should be created equal. And the ground, the surface, the planet, the place where we live, areas of purpose in that space, all relating to places that we can understand. But specifically, when you see this image right center, really bring people together in a space that allows us all to share common goals and needs. But also, we want to be able to explore our collective opportunities. We are a very, very small part of this universe, and it's important for us to understand how important we are to each other in that process of exploring these opportunities. So first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. This is a beach that I grew up on in a small country called Liberia, West Africa. Liberia is a very interesting country. It was colonized by the US. It's a country that was established for free slaves in the 1800s, really meant to provide an opportunity for people to go back to Africa. These are my parents. This image was circa 1970. My mother and father immigrated to the US in 1965 for their education, starting on the East Coast in Boston for undergraduate studies, and then on the West Coast in Seattle, here at UW, for their graduate studies. And that's me, the little one on the right side, really enjoying my time with my family here. Shortly after this image, we made our way back to Africa. And back in Africa, I worked with my father, who was an architect, and had a lot of wonderful opportunities to learn the essence of design in his practice. And it was really great to really figure out what design means, how design can change lives and make improve the quality of life for people. At EDSA, I was fortunate enough to work with a very wonderful gentleman, Joe Lally, who was my mentor. Joe spent a lot of time sharing ideas and really addressing the fairness in design so that we can all work together towards creating places that are beautiful for people. I've been very fortunate to travel to many countries and work with amazing clients and really explore our differences, our cultures, and that's really what brings us together. It's so amazing how a simple sketch can get people on the same page when we're trying to figure out what we're trying to do together. And then I have been very fortunate to work very closely with ASLA, learning a lot from my wonderful colleagues and sharing all sorts of different ideas towards the improvement of our profession. And I certainly cherish the organization significantly for everything it does for all of us as we work in this space of design in the built world. The one thing I really love is spending time with students. This is a fantastic opportunity that I was able to partake in at the University of Washington. I was invited to UW by Tysa Way to come and do a workshop, a design thinking workshop with their students, and it was just an amazing experience. And you can see from this image the diversity of the students, and that is not something that is unusual. This is going to continue to happen, and we're actually seeing diversity in our clients as well. A little bit about EDSA, a firm that I really love. I've been at EDSA since 1997. Our company is 60 years old. We really focus on design excellence and design awards, and we have a very strong global presence. The reason for that global presence started many years ago. Our founder, Edward D. Stone Jr., his father, Edward D. Stone Sr., was a prominent architect, and we did a lot of work with Sr. all over the world, a lot of embassies, and those types of projects that allowed us to travel and really get used to that sort of level of work. The pedigree is very strong, and architecture and landscape architecture are really ingrained in our DNA. Ed was both an architect and a landscape architect. He chose to pursue a practice in landscape architecture simply to really balance out what he learned from his dad. We are organized in design studio teams. We all work very closely together across several offices, and allows us to have a lot of flexibility and creativity. It allows us to work very closely with clients with a very small group of people and always have continuous principal involvement in all of our projects. Our expertise ranges from all types of projects, but really a focus on the spaces between the buildings and also understanding of how we can bring people into the public realm to enjoy those spaces, whether it's an arts and entertainment project or it's something that really focuses on a hospitality destination, obviously the public realm, as well as residential living. And our work is really great for us because we really spend a lot of time focusing on getting projects built and the implementation and learning from all the things that we do. We're currently working on several different types of projects. This is a historic downtown Savannah streetscape. We're working on one of their major historic streets right now, Broughton Street. It's under construction. It was a fantastic process to work through the understanding of the needs of the city and really focus on creating places for people to be in the future. We've also done a lot of projects that you wouldn't imagine, wildlife parks. And when we do projects like this, it's very important for us to collaborate. We work very closely with Jones & Jones. We've had a fantastic relationship with many different consultants around the world that bring the expertise that we want to collaborate and share towards a better future for our clients. Hospitality, quite a lot of hospitality work in our portfolio, specifically focusing on the opportunities for people to get back to nature and relax and refresh themselves and come back to work very strong. And so we love these types of projects. And then another passion of ours is working on aquariums and working on entertainment type projects that bring people into an understanding of the ecology and the environment. So this is the Moat Aquarium in Sarasota, Florida, that we collaborated with Cambridge 7 Associates to work them through their concept and schematic design for Moat, which was so much fun to take that project through that process. And then Westlake Park, one of our legacy projects located here in South Florida, an opportunity that we saw to get people into the environment of the mangroves and really enjoy that wonderful South Florida experience, being in the water and being within the trees. So now we're going to touch on discovering equity, and I love this image, Glacier National Park. You know, there's something about the land that we really sometimes take for granted. And the land is for everyone. The land brings us together. The land was here before the buildings. In many places, the land was here before the people. And I think one thing that we've realized about the land is that it's equitable. Everyone shares this land, and I think it's something that we should all keep in mind. But the reality is all the public spaces aren't for everyone. Many of our clients that we work with are from very diverse backgrounds. We've learned over the years that many of them have been left out of the conversation, and we've been able to change that. But one of the first things that we've had to overcome and embrace is the opportunity of creating and building trust. It's the only way that we work well together. So the public realm, I love this word. It's very architectural. We know it very well, but when you ask others, they're like, what is that? You know? And so I wanted to make sure that we could define it and get a good understanding for it in this conversation. It's public space. It's space and places that are accessible to everyone. It's very, very simple. And if you look at this diagram from Civitas, they took the idea of the sort of the places that are for the public, you know, the churches, the libraries, and they combine that with the fabric of the economics and the places for people to live and actually thrive, and pull that together to create this opportunity that really resides in this public realm. And one thing I've learned from much of my travel is that the spaces between buildings are those areas that the public realm are. It really defines that. And so architecture, urban design, and landscape architecture must always work very closely together to create these spaces for people to learn to live together and to learn to understand each other. But what I find very interesting is that this fabric of the public realm, of creating these spaces, is not one-dimensional. It's not always Eurocentric. You know, being from Liberia, West Africa, I've studied the African experience as it relates to design and planning. And you know, their method of planning was really based closely to the idea of fractals. It's mathematic, it's based on an order, and it comes together in a way that allows hierarchy and equity to sort of work together in that space of creating places for people. I see this throughout the Middle East and North Africa. I see this sort of aspect of design in many parts of South America, but then you also see this overlay of the colonialism, of this Eurocentric design, and this understanding of this sort of orthogonal order, which is not necessarily always the way that places want to evolve. And so we find it very challenging when you think about the public realm and understand what it means in terms of people living and being together in a place that makes sense for them. Public, we define it. I mean, it's all about this accessibility. It's about the people as a whole and really looking at those common interests. And then going back to the realm, which I love, this word really is intriguing because it is about sort of this domain, this kingdom. And so when you think about the public realm, it's the kingdom for the people. If you put it in that aspect, it's the place where the people own that space, and they have to come at that space in an understanding of its shared use, of its ability to give everybody a little bit in that sort of diagram. And so we draw a lot. So we sketch these public areas, this public realm, and we create the opportunities to really explore it before we get into it. So when we're having conversation with clients, we can talk them through how it feels to be in that space. What does it mean? What things can you do? Can you have a bite to eat? Is there a place for your children to hang out? And I think that's really unique in our space of design. And so historically, you have to go back to Egypt and really to understand a lot of how, the way things have been done in the past really reflect on where we are today. I love Egypt. I spent a lot of time there in the Nile Delta, and you can see these patterns forming. And as you can note in this image, they are very organic. Um, in those tan areas are the settlements for farmers and people that live in this space. And the green areas are the fertile ground, the land that allows people to grow food for sustenance. I love this comparison. It really is intriguing to see how Western civilization has changed this organic pattern of living. New York to the left, very orthogonal, very organized, very orderly. Every once in a while, a stray road or street here and there. Rome is kind of this hybrid in between, and they have their squares and they have their axes and all these different spaces, but you can see how things get very, very loose in some areas. Cairo on the right side in this image is all of the above. Everything kind of comes together. And we know intuitively, as the Egyptians we know the culture is very significant and very, very smart people. There are reasons why things evolved the way they did. And then over the generations, you can see how our Western influence actually has come to bear on how things are planned in Cairo. But it's a beautiful place. What I love about it is the people. What I love about Cairo and Egypt specifically is understanding that commerce, understanding the places where people come together, really, really loving their hospitality. They really believe in taking care of people and sharing what they have to offer. What's also intriguing is that they go about business every day. Life continues on no matter what is happening. Commerce is number one. And, I love this image from this taxi ride. There's a lot of traffic, a lot of things happening. There are donkeys and cars and buses and people all kind of bustling together and working together to get there. But they're also very strong-minded as it comes to religion, and they really care about the religion of all, which I find amazing. In many parts of Old Cairo, you can find a mosque, a church, and a synagogue all in the same area, sharing the same public realm, which is fantastic. I found it very interesting in preparing for this that there are a lot of people that have written about characteristics of the good public realm. What is a good public realm? And this particular group here, livableCities.org, was really focusing on the streets and some of the spaces, but making sure that places are delightful. That's a fantastic word. That they're flexible, especially now going through COVID. We know that these areas can ebb and flow and become places for people to actually occupy. Having multiple ways to get there, and obviously always being sustainable. I love New York as well, love Bryant Park. It really sort of hits the mark when it comes to creating that true public realm where everyone is welcome, everyone has a place to be. But sometimes when I go there and I look through the spaces, I don't always see as much diversity as I would like to see. I haven't been to New York in a while since the pandemic, but I'm hoping that next time I'm there, things are different. But our focus when it comes to design of these spaces really boils down into three buckets. It's really all about people, from your family and your friendships, and understanding our love for each other. And then these places that we are fortunate enough to be in and to share with each other through travel and understanding what it means to be global, to be a steward, and certainly to care for those places. But I really believe, and I know that many of you would agree, that you must have purpose in this process of design, understanding what you should advocate for, sharing that passion through sketches and protesting if you have to, and writing and innovating, but certainly always listening. I think one thing that's important when it comes to listening is listening to our forefathers, listening to the indigenous people. This image always resonates with me. It reminds me of the 70s. I remember this ad campaign when I was a kid. It was actually run in Liberia as well. It's something that's really amazing to understand how indigenous people must feel about what has happened to this place. And a lot of this is not new. We've struggled with our understanding of the place, the public realm. What are we doing with it? And fantastic people in our country and our world have been, really looking at this question, from Jane Jacobs to Rachel Carson and one of my favorites, Ian McCart, who really looked at this whole understanding of the world and how it works and what we should do to be better stewards. I find it always intriguing and interesting. This was shared by Beth Myers at the Landscape Architecture Foundation 50th anniversary, that a woman by the name of Lady Bird Johnson really put the stamp on being careful and really caring about our beautiful America. But America has struggled, as we know, for quite some time. We've struggled through racism, we've struggled through poverty. We haven't been able to figure out how to lift everyone up. And that's one thing that I really want to talk us through as we go through this. My good friend Kofi Boone contributed to a book recently, really that looked at this place that we're in and what are we doing, and how are we shaping the spaces that we design for everyone, especially Black people that haven't always been there and haven't been able to really grow in our environment. There's certainly room for improvement. It's not just our public realm in terms of its urban condition, it's our national parks, it's our state parks, it's our city parks. This little timeline here shows you what we've been through and what we still continue to go through as it relates to everyone having equitable access to those spaces. The Jim Crow era really left a very nasty scar in our history. So difficult that African Americans had to really resort to this green book to find places where they could go and travel and be safe. Sure, the parks were desegregated at one point, but even as Barack Obama learned, there was still a lot happening in the parks that didn't allow us to truly show equity in those spaces. This image always gets me from Shenandoah National Park, and this is the way it was. They had a space for Black people and a space for white people, and we all try to navigate those spaces as safely as we possibly could. And the reality of what we've been going through is not new. From the civil rights movement to all the things that we're dealing with today, these moments have all occurred in our public realm, and they've all occurred in these spaces that we come to grieve, to learn, to love each other, to be angry. All of these aspects allow us to understand our human condition. I truly appreciate Cornel West as a writer and a professor that really shared quite a lot of good insight on things that really are important to us. And so race and democracy certainly continue to intertwine in many of our conversations as it relates to design. Back in 2016 at the annual meeting in New Orleans for ASLA, we had a deep conversation about this, and it was really challenging. It brought a lot of people to tears and made us really think about who we are and what we're doing. Late last year, my good friend Walter Hood finally released this book about Black landscapes. And if you haven't read it, please grab it, read it. It is a must read for anyone that's working in this space. But he asked a lot of great questions. It's like, what are we doing? Why are these things happening? And why are people of color being harmed in a greater frequency? And it's amazing when you look at what happened and what occurred over 2020. It really went around the world. I mean, BLM protests were happening in Europe. They were happening here at home, obviously. There was a lot of grief that was being shared, a lot of anger that was being shared. And again, this is not new. I was born in 1968, and I'm a real aficionado when it comes to the 60s, and I've learned a lot about that era and what we've done to ourselves, and what we've learned from that space and what we can do to be better. So when you think about it, opportunity equals possibilities. And I love this Maya Angelou poem because it really talks about life and that we are very, very much alike. There's no doubt about it. We want the same things. We want our kids to grow up healthy, happy. We want to see them get married. We want to have grandkids. Everybody wants the same thing. And so the question is, what can we do to bring that possibility to everyone? I think the first thing we need to start with is a little bit of reconciliation. It's really amazing how many people acknowledged how challenged African Americans and people of color have been over these decades, centuries, to be honest with you. And I think the understanding of how we can start to bring people together in the public realm is certainly the way for us to get there. And as designers, we have a lot to do with that. When I travel around the world and I see these types of spaces where, although many of these people may be from Spain, in this picture from Las Ramblas in Barcelona, many of them are not. They're from all over the world, and they're coming here for this experience of getting to know people, for spending time together, whether it's at a museum or it's at the High Line in New York, one of the most visited public spaces in our country. It's fantastic that we're able to design these types of spaces that bring people together. I'm going to touch on a few case studies here, and that really sort of explore that idea of reconciliation. This image here is from the Valletta waterfront. We were able to work very closely with the government to bring a wonderful historic adaptive reuse back to life to allow people to come and experience the place. And there are many fantastic landscape architects and designers that are doing this type of work. This group, Cadence, here in Fort Lauderdale, we love very much. They're fantastic designers. They put together an opportunity to connect a community that was divided. Just like many other parts of the US, Fort Lauderdale has its section, the Northwest, that was identified for people of color. And that has changed over the years. We've finally become more integrated. But one thing that we never had, we're still working on through this process, is those trails, those opportunities to connect people together. So this Mockingbird Trail does exactly that through lots of really wonderful interpretive spaces, utilizing the mockingbird, our Florida state bird, as sort of the jumping off point for the environment, bringing people back together. Also down in Dallas, Texas, I love this project by Credoc. The Trinity River Audubon Center did a lot in terms of restoration of the land and reconciliation of land. But what it really did, in my opinion, that's made life much better for people is it integrated and brought that local African American community back to nature, gave them a place to go to really experience that life, that wonderful essence of living in a place. We've also had fantastic opportunities to collaborate in many of these public realm experiences. Here with Martha Schwartz, Martha and I have become really good friends, reached out to me in regards to an opportunity in Miami. Neither one of our firms are going to pursue this competition, but we decided together we had a better shot and would have a fun time doing it. So it was great to work closely with Martha and understand her design process, and also get a good understanding of the land and what our client was trying to achieve. Bringing people back to the water, bringing them to this public realm was our task. And we did that through a series of sketches and different transformations and interpretations of what that land needed to be in order to draw people to it. A working waterfront today that we see becoming a place for people to really gather and love being there. The Downtown Development Authority in Miami has actually moved forward with this process, and working closely with firms in South Florida and around the country to actually implement this amazing space that they call the Baywalk, which is really fantastic. We had another opportunity to collaborate in the public realm with another landscape architect in Detroit, one of those cities that's seen hard times and is coming around. But what's great about this experience was getting to know the people, was spending time on their turf, understanding what they were looking for, what made them happy. They loved fishing. They loved experiencing that place that they cherished. And it was great to work very closely with Mia Lara and her team out of LA. Was fantastic. One of Mia's designers, Kat, you see here in the image at the computer, at the tie, is a Detroiter. She was able to share a lot of information with us and really get us dialed into the community. But we began this process through collaboration with architects and engineers to really design something that was meaningful for people. And that's really what it's all about, creating these spaces that people can come to, that can enjoy life, that can live in a manner that is healthy, that is equitable, and it's good for everyone. There's a fantastic greenway, a Joe Louis Greenway that comes near this site and really ties this all together. So this was a great opportunity to work through a competition, sharing ideas and learning with the local community in regards to what the future could look like. In Gainesville, Florida, we went through a very similar process of reconciliation with a community that was very divided. Hopefully not so much today after a lot of the work that we went through. It was rooted in community engagement. And we had to bring two parts of the city that didn't really always spend a lot of time together. African Americans on the east side, Caucasians on the west side, the University of Florida being sort of in the middle. And what we found was that there was a lot of commonality here. Everyone was from Gainesville. Everyone was resonated with their local neighborhoods. And we went through this process of engagement and spent a lot of time getting to know people. And our meetings included activists and homeowners, kids, everyone that you can imagine that wanted to learn and wanted to share in the reconciliation and renovation of their place. It was fantastic. We collected so much data, and that data was used to really inform the design. One of the things that we learned was they really cared about history. They had created this opportunity to save and cherish one of the homes of a local educator, A. Quinn Jones. And we were able to work closely with them in terms of defining a path for a trail that would tie everyone together, very similar to the trail that's being done in Fort Lauderdale. But really what it was about was bringing community together, finding ways for people to enjoy living in the same space. I mean, if you think about it, we had been segregated for such a long time through the Jim Crow era, and dealing with a lot of things that were troubling. And now the understanding that we can live together has really brought us in a place where we can grow and provide places for people that are better. And I think that really has a lot to do with life, is what can we do to be better? This image I love, that's Bo Diddley's relatives. Bo Diddley was from Gainesville. This plaza was dedicated, this park was dedicated in his honor. This is the park in this image here. This is a fantastic space. And if you look through this image, you will see there are all types of people here. Believe it or not, music, food, culture always brings us together. And these are the types of spaces that I think are fantastic when you think about life. All of us have the opportunity to come together to do things that we normally would do, and do it in a manner that makes everyone enjoy. You know, since the pandemic, we've learned a lot. And one thing that we're fortunate to work on was an opportunity to share with the city of Baltimore from our Baltimore studio ways to get people back into the public realm through the COVID area. So we entered a competition, we put together some strategies and shared with the city of Baltimore. It was really fantastic. It was picked up by City Lab. We learned a lot in terms of what you can do with a little bit of thought and energy to create spaces for people. So the last step in this process is talking about reconnection. How can we get people back into the environment? How can we encourage everyone to enjoy these magical spaces? It's important, and it's something that we all should learn from and cherish for future generations. My life will always be changed. In 2016 at the New Landscape Declaration in Philly, we really learned a lot at UPenn about what we were going through as designers and what we could do to help the future. Several key issues came up, but we knew that it was important for us to act now. From climate change to all the inequities that we talked about and this mass urbanization that Cathy talked about, it's not going to change. We have to remember, how do we cherish that land? How do we take care of the urban fabric? How do we take care of the rural fabric? How do we help each other through the entire process? One of the things that I thought about and really resonated with was this challenge here to work to strengthen and diversify our global capacity. It's something that was really challenging when we wrote this declaration in one page of all the things we were trying to accomplish. And when I thought about this statement, it really came back to the opportunity to get people back to the land. This group here, the Friends of Cascade Springs Nature Preserve, reached out to me out of the blue. I guess they discovered me on the internet as an African-American landscape architect. They wanted someone to come and help and listen and help them figure out what to do with this amazing land. And, it's managed by the Atlanta Parks and Rec. There are several organizations that work very closely with this space that cherish trails throughout the state. We had a fantastic guide that showed us the project. There was a lot of Native American sort of history there, Civil War history, just amazing place that brought people back to the environment. Now, this is located in a historically African American community. They wanted to make sure that it was maintained and taken care of. And it was something that I started to note that, there's a reason why some segments of our population are not getting drawn to the environment. They're not exposed to it. I remember growing up when I came to the States for high school and college, being told that, hey, be careful out there. Some of those times those parks can be dangerous. Don't go to the park. And it really made me uncomfortable, because growing up in Liberia, I was always out in the public realm, out in the outdoors, running around, and probably one of the reasons why I'm a landscape architect today. But I think we need to continue to find a way to connect people to nature. This couple here, the Peterman family, they saw this as well. Frank was a National Park Service employee, worked there for several years, and his wife spent a lot of time in the national parks, but they saw this whole disrespect for nature, and that it really wasn't becoming of us. Now, one of the major reconnections we made was with the community outside of LA. We had a great opportunity to really allow people to love the space that they love very much. It's about 30 minutes outside of LA, the city of La Puente. We worked through this whole process of design with them, went through the whole fabric of how we process opportunities for folks. It was fantastic to see the amount of people that were so interested. They had this one central space, this one public realm, their Central Park, and it was being loved to death. It was just unbelievable how well the space was used, and it was all they had. So we really wanted to focus on what we could do to, lengthen its life, because it was their outdoor living room. And one thing we learned through this process of public engagement was that, for them, not everyone was allowed. We were wondering, why isn't everyone using these spaces? It's a 80% Hispanic American community. There were several Asian Americans in the neighborhood, didn't always come to these parks. And so everything we did was multilingual. We wanted to engage everyone and get them into these spaces to cherish it. We went to the people for these experiences, walked them through what we were trying to do, the good old green dot exercise to find out what they really liked. And it worked. The city has been working very closely to find ways to finance this park through bonds and also through grants. And, ultimately they want a place that's safe. And so when we started sketching out this idea of stringing this emerald necklace, this ring of parks together, they really started to resonate with it. And all these sketches were done with them, and it allowed us to really focus on a final concept that brought everyone's ideas together. You had people who were advocating for sports, you had people that were advocating for, being able to have an open space, having places for, for music, a splash pad for kids, a skate park. All these ideas were just flowing together. And at the end of the day, we rolled up our sleeves and worked together to make it happen for everyone. And they were so delighted. Another project that really focused on this reconnection is the Gratney Plateau Park in North Miami. This was a really meaningful project for me. It was a pro bono project that I didn't expect us to be involved with, but got a call from friends at Miller Construction to come and meet the people at Local 10 in Miami-Dade County. And we brought some friends together to talk about what they needed. And we went through a fantastic design process to transform a vacant piece of land into a park for a community that really deserved it. The community was not very happy that we were there to quote unquote help. They challenged us. They were protesting, and they wanted to understand why we're here. What I found amazing was that many of the things that the folks in La Puente told us were very similar to the folks here in North Miami. And so on both sides of the coast of the country, understanding that we all have a lot in common. We went through a series of concepts, we brought them in, we sketched together. It was really a great understanding of the process of design that many of them were not familiar with. Many of them didn't know that landscape architects exist, not alone a Black landscape architect. So it was a little bit of an enigma. They chose this third concept, focus on the flower. The whole idea of rebirth was kind of our big push here and pitch. We took that concept directly in the construction documents. We developed it through. We got to the point where a lot of the elements that we were designing, we wanted to make sure resonated with the community. And I will never forget this young girl telling me that no matter what, this park had to have an orange slide because she loves the Miami Dolphins and one of their colors is orange. And so we're like, you're gonna get your orange slide, and she did. It was just a fantastic, transformation. It brought the community together of all ages, gave everybody an opportunity to be in that space, in that landscape, to really care for each other, and to really be thankful for the land that was right in their neighborhood, right next door, that they were afraid to use. Projects like this really resonate with me and has given my life a lot of purpose and reason for what we do as designers. And several years ago, a good friend in EDSA gave me this book. And, I always thank Sean for that gift. Start With Why by Simon Sinek really helped me to understand a lot about what we do. And that image on the right is my sketchbook. I sketch and I read together constantly to kind of bounce ideas and capture things. And I've done a lot of reading recently, especially over the pandemic. And what I've learned is that there's so much going on in our world that is keeping us apart. But there's so much that should be bringing us together. This book by Isabel Wilkerson really sort of correlated that whole idea of the caste system in India with racism here in the US, and how we're marginalizing people based on who they are instead of bringing everyone together. I love this book by Elijah Anderson. Cindy Sanders from Olin turned me onto this book several years ago. I was fortunate enough to be in Philly and go to the Reading terminal, where this book is all about, and learn how fantastic it is to be in a public market and see everybody coming together, the practice, right? The practice being human, which is just fantastic. And that's really what it's about, being human. This book, Dan Schwabel, is about the age of technology and how it's taking us away from being human. But it also is something that we need to understand. How do we use technology to our advantage, similar to how we're having this Zoom meeting now, to allow people to live and to be better? I watched this documentary really scared me. The social dilemma really gets to the crux of the issue. How when we get too removed from each other, we get too removed from that public realm, we forget the importance of our social connection. And we've come to a place in this world where there are so many things beating against that social connection. One of those things is climate change. There's no doubt that we need to pay attention to our climate and do the things that are necessary to make sure that we have a great planet for our children and their children going into the future. COVID definitely put a major damper on our lives in the public realm, bringing us together. I still remember going outside after one of those months where I was like, when are we going back? and I was like, you know, we may not be going back for a while, but it was great to be outside with my mask on and to see, you know, everyone riding bikes and being very cordial and saying hello. So there are some silver linings in this process. And then finally, the Black Lives Matter movement really put an emphasis on why we need each other, why everyone matters, why we should treat each other with care, why it's important to acknowledge that we have many people that have not been treated well through that process of life. I have been very fortunate to engage with many different companies that are really doing the good work to get us to that place. The Urban Studios, a fantastic nonprofit that came together to look at the ideas of what we can do to bring people back into nature. It's a nonprofit run by some very talented young up and coming designers and landscape architects, and it's just fantastic to see them step into this role as a side hustle from their day jobs. Mass Design Group in Massachusetts, they are unbelievable. This is a company that I really admire. They're doing such fantastic work as it relates to people and the experience in that public realm. This group, Not Impossible Labs, I've talked about them before. They are unbelievable. They really are computer people that thought about ways to help and ways to do it through technology in a very simple way, but really focusing on humanity. And I have to certainly acknowledge my brother in the Bay Area, Walter Hood, and all his work that has really looked at those spaces that people don't always cherish. You know, the spaces under the bridges. I still remember meeting Walter in 1996 and just very enamored by the work he was doing and really breaking ground as it relates to places that Black people occupy. And then also out on your coast, my good friend Kim Garza at Atlas Lab, doing amazing work to help people understand the importance of our world through design, through art, through these great guerrilla transformations. And she's just fantastic. So in closing, I want to make sure that you all understand how important it is for us to give back and to spend time with the younger generation to help them understand why this public realm was so important. This is a project here in South Florida, in Pompano, that we designed that wasn't much. It was a parking lot, but guess what? It brings people together, and it's very well used. It's a simple splash pad with a design focused on understanding of the environment and giving people understanding of why it's important to be outside. But I've been fortunate enough to do several career days and work with young people. That's my daughter, second from the left, and she loves landscape architecture. She gets it. And I did career day at her school. It was so fantastic to see these letters from the kids thanking me for sharing what we do as landscape architects. They had no idea. It was just great to spend that time doing that. But in 2007, when she was born, my purpose was certainly solidified. I realized that there was more to life than just design, and understanding what I could do to make her life better. You know, it's so crazy. I think back, it wasn't that long ago, and she gets it. I mean, we spent time in the public realm and our outdoors and saw things that weren't very well taken care of, and she asked why. Why is that trash on the ground? Why did somebody throw their McDonald's bag out the window? You know, we need to care about our public realm. We need to love our cities and we love our people. My daughter is 14 now, and she's really grown into someone that really has a strong environmental ethic and a care for the land and a care for the people. And she is a manifestation of where we are and where we're going in this world. She's multicultural. You know, her DNA goes through Northern Europe, through Scandinavia, through Scotland and England, through Africa, through Ghana, Senegal, Liberia, and she has a lot of understanding for people, which I really love. And so I'm going to finish with this quote from Archbishop Desmond Tutu. This is a Zulu word, Ubuntu, and it really focuses on people. I am because you are, and it shows you how humanity is caught up in each other. We are bound together. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. We're all cousins from some place in the world, and I think that makes us better. And my wish for all of us is that we continue to cherish our public realm, where humanity can come together to be its best. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Kona. That was wonderful.
All right.
Krista's got questions for you. That was great.
All right. I'm going to stop sharing so we can all see each other.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kona, for letting us see into your mind and your thought process and how you've really broken down this idea of the public realm. I'm always so inspired by your thoughtfulness and your humility that you bring to everything that you do. No matter who you're working with, whether it's the community, the students, or popular designers, or some prince maybe in Egypt you've probably worked with as well.
There's a few of those.
So I appreciate you reminding us that we're more alike than we are unalike. So I've got a couple questions here. I have one from a student in Bolivia.
Wow.
And they said you talked a lot about inclusion and how we experience the public realm. But in Bolivia, having those experiences is really difficult. Architecture here is really poor and the government is a mess. My question is, as an architect, what would you do to change this?
Wow. That's a very good question. And as an architect, it's your responsibility to change this. Creating those places for people to be together is what we do. And you cannot always rely on the government to do it. Ask my friend Kim Garza. She's done a lot of work in the public realm that, just kind of happened, And once these ideas are seeded, these spaces are brought to bear in a very light manner, people start to pay attention. You can do it in a very simple way, finding a space that's underutilized and caring for it. As an architect, as a designer, bringing your colleagues together to do something that no one asked you to do, but you saw an opportunity to provide a place that's better. We know that it is a challenge in many countries, but it won't happen unless you try. And that's what I really inspire and hope that you do. Just try something, and you will see it will start to come together.
Yeah, good luck to you in Bolivia. All right, next question. I would like to get your perspective on the equality between landscape architects, and civil engineers. We have had in-depth discussions of equality within landscape architecture. There still seems to be some differences between the quality of costs and respect between disciplines. Based on our cross-disciplinary experience, how do we get the acknowledgement and equal status as these other disciplines?
Fantastic. You have to speak up. I think landscape architects need to be very clear about the discipline and what we do. I'm very fortunate because, growing up as the son of an architect, and my uncle's a civil engineer, they both were developers. I got to see how it all works together. And in Liberia, the disciplines are not that divided. My dad practiced everything. Interiors on one day, mechanical engineering the next day, landscape architecture another day. I think we have an opportunity here in our country to really take the best from all of our disciplines, bring them to the table, roll up our sleeves together, start projects as a team. really pains me when a client calls us at the last minute, or one of our friends that are architects are, burning something down, getting rolling, going. They're like, we forgot the landscape architects. We are all very important in this equation to get to that proper solution, that good solution. And so I highly recommend that no matter what your discipline is, you take the time to get an understanding for the other disciplines. When I was in architecture school, I worked for a structural and civil engineer, which you wouldn't imagine I would want to do. But it was one of the best experiences ever because I learned something different. I learned something new. I understood why they were mad at architects. It was really clear that, they were like, well, they're not really thinking about everyone else. And I was like, oh, that's what it is. So sometimes it's really simple. And so I love being in the experience of having conversations with colleagues. And when architecture comes up, being able to speak the language is really helpful. So when an architect hears me talking about mullions and cantilever and stuff like that, they're like, oh, you know what we do. I was like, oh yeah, I know what we do. And I know about plants too, and I know about urban design, and I know about civil engineering. It's landscape architects and urban planners. We do have this opportunity as generalists in design to do a lot. But we all have to rope our hands together. This is the only way projects get done. There's no single person that takes it all the way through. So speak up.
And now another question that I have personally, I noticed how you were, bringing up the work that you've done with other landscape architects and how you've been able to go into the public realm with more representation from the design profession. What benefits or things that have you seen in those projects where you've been able to go in with multiple design teams? Has it strengthened or brought any weaknesses to that experience?
It has definitely strengthened the experience. I got to tell you, architects have been doing it for a long time, this whole collaboration. And when we come together, we although we have a similar discipline, we may think a little bit different or have a different process. I've learned so much. We've all learned so much in our firm from other landscape architects, from artists, from engineers that we work with. And when you're able to, lose the ego, first things first, lose the ego, come together to solve a common issue or take advantage of a common opportunity, it just makes it so much better. We had an amazing collaboration with GGN out of Seattle on a project here in South Florida. They are fantastic designers, but they were not that familiar with our Southern Florida ecology. And Jennifer Guthrie and I served on a board together, and she asked me one day, hey, would you be interested in teaming up? I was like, sure, let's do it. And so we figured it out. We shared our resources, we learned from each other, and it was just fantastic. So I highly recommend that we partner more. It's good for us.
Thank you. And at this point, I'll pass it back over to Cathy. I think she has another question and then she'll close us out.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have one more question for you. Being a client ourselves, we think the program is really important, but designers come and really look at the program. But how often do you find that your clients are not asking the program questions that you think the space needs, or, like to be more inclusionary and to kind of expand thinking? I'm sure you're often hired to do projects where you think they could be better or they should have a different program. How do you deal with that?
Well, I'm happy you asked that question because it comes up quite a bit, especially for the exterior spaces. The building program is pretty straightforward. Everybody knows these spaces need to be allocated for certain uses. We've always proposed programming for the exterior spaces as well. And that sort of in between that a lot of people don't think about, whether it's the space in a courtyard or space as you're exiting a building into a plaza space, or it's the fifth facade, a green roof. We believe those spaces must always be programmed. And so we work really closely with our clients as friends. We share a lot of ideas together. We're taking pictures of things we've learned, our best practices, It's so funny. A lot of times we're texting images to our clients, hey, check this out. This is something we just saw that would really be fantastic for this project. It's not always about our idea, but I think that the program really grounds the space. And since COVID, many of our clients are way more familiar and way more understanding of programming the exterior spaces. That is not going to change. I think it's another silver lining that would allow us to grow into the future in a much better way.
Well, that's wonderful, Kona. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. I think the lecture was wonderful and really thought-provoking. It gives us all something to think on. And again, I want to extend our appreciation for your lecture tonight. Thank you.
Cathy, thank you so much. I really appreciate being here, and I wish you all well. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.